Today I'm going to teach you guys how to make complex 808s like this. They're actually very simple, and once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to do this instantly. So let's get started. I'm going to break it down into 3 different parts, and the first thing we're going to start with is the 7/5 rule. I did an R&B tutorial, and I said the 1, the 4, and the 5 are the most important notes. This is only 5 notes away, and from the C to the G, it's only 7 notes away. The reason why they're important is because this is home, this is tension, this is the most tension that wants to go back home. That's why they're important. Now, remember this concept. Now, I have the melody that I made yesterday, and usually, what's the first thing people tell us to do? They tell us to search for the bass line. So I have the bass line here, right? I'm gonna put it octaves up just so you can hear it. Now that's super easy, but we already know this though. I want to move on to the second thing, which is note lengths. The first thing was 7/5 rule. Number 2 is note lengths. Now, obviously, once we find the bass notes, we can create, slices. This is obviously a guideline because it can help you do different patterns. So if I decide to do something like this, obviously, if I press Control L to connect all the notes, I have a guideline to make the chops, right? Melody dictates bounce. The rhythm of the melody is the first thing that initiates the bounce. Without rhythm, you really don't have no bounce, and it doesn't matter how good the 808s are. If they're not on time, if they're not in key, they're terrible. Now let me break it down into 2 different parts. Melodies with bass notes are super easy, but they already have a guideline of which notes you're supposed to follow and which notes you're supposed to use. And any note outside of that, you notice because the bass notes are super present. Usually to get around that, you could turn the velocity down on the bass notes so they're not as present, or you can bring them up an octave so that way they're still there, but they're no longer the present bass note. They're not strong enough to be present, so that way you can move around with the 808s. And if you're using a sample or a loop and you don't have the MIDI notes to even turn the velocity down on any bass notes, you could just throw it into the EQ and just take off the lows a bit so that way it's not present. Now that's melodies with bass notes. Now let's talk about melodies without bass notes. And I'm talking about melodies that kind of have an art-based melody. For example, NC-17 by Travis Scott, Throw Some More by Ray Shrimmer, Mercy by Good Music, Friends by Jay-Z and Beyonce. If you notice, they don't have present bass notes. With those melodies, you can actually play around with the bounce on those melodies because there's no specific bass note on there. It's not that present for you to even hear it. Now that we have those established, now I could teach you about the complex shit with 808s. We can actually put that in play, and I'll break it down for you right now. So I restarted all these notes so I could show you from scratch. Now, this is where the 7/5 rule applies. If the next note is either 5 notes away or 7 notes away, it creates tension. Now, tension is not bad. I personally like to use tension to really emphasize certain parts. Any note outside of the 1, the 4, and the 5, they create movement. So if I look at these next notes, right? 1, 2, 3, it creates movement. All right, let's check the next note. It's only 1 note away, creates movement. Now look at this, 1, 2, 3, creates movement. Now if we look at this note, let's see if it matches up with this B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now this note has created tension right here, and I could end the phrase to really emphasize it right there and then have it loop over so that way the bounce is different. Now even though there's tension right here, I can leave that as is, but because the melody is in a forward moving motion, it has to continue. No. And since this is the same right here, and it's that simple for complex 808s. Now I'm gonna show you two other melodies. Now I'm gonna just break down these drums right here. Now if you notice, these notes are not conflicting with each other. They're not creating much tension right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, those are. Only because I want to emphasize the beginning. This is why you have to really play around with tension and release, because some parts can really be emphasized. But if you notice, with this melody, there's no bass notes. And the great thing about it is I can move around, I can play around with this shit. Like, look at this shit. You see the notes I just added? I can add those notes and they're not going to interfere with the melody, and they're not going to sound off. They're going to be real bouncy because guess what? They're not overly conflicting with each other. And even if some of these do, it's because they're creating that tension. I'm really emphasizing that. Now I have another melody over here. Now listen to this. If you notice, they're not conflicting with each other. Maybe they're conflicting right here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't see no. Nope, they're not conflicting. Because I don't want emphasis right here. I don't want to emphasize it here. But if you notice, the notes that I placed here that are not even that far away create that movement. They create that bounce. So if you want complex melodies, you really have to find out where you want the tension and then just put a 4 or a 5 there, or a 1. Now if you want to find the emphasis in this one, listen, I got the 1 right here. I put the scale just so I can have a reference, just to show you guys. Here, I'll color it for you guys. This one right here in the blue is emphasis, emphasis, movement, movement, emphasis, emphasis, movement, movement, and then so on and so forth. And if I look right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's tension right there. I want to end off with tension because that's where the phrase ends. And it's that simple, it's that easy. The only reason why these notes are short, or even these notes are short, is because I really wanted to show you guys these notes. So there you go, there you have it. That's how to do complex 808s. That's actually how to just do 808s in general. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what else you guys want to see. Subscribe to my YouTube and let me know in the comments what else you want to see. Tag somebody and let somebody know this shit, because this shit can help any and everybody. I also have a 30% off on kits, so just put the code last month to get 30% off on kits, and then you good.